r/ask Reddit. What is the scariest, creepiest incident you've seen but no one believes you? Before we begin, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. One night some years ago I was moving out of an apartment of where I had been living alone. I had spent the last 5 days moving my stuff out and only had some stuff left over in a closet. Having cleared out the closet almost fully, I noticed serious damage to the interior wall hidden behind an ironing board that I never use. A huge chunk of it was missing, and there was some drywall on the closet floor. I got nervous because I knew I might lose my deposit. After moving everything out of the way, I noticed that the space in the wall fell down into what I assumed was the same closet, but in the apartment underneath me. I knew right away that it was mice/rats because I've seen them do this exact thing before. They eat through everything. I got a flashlight to look down to see if there was a bunch of mice down there and if I needed to call someone. I stuck my head in the hole and shone the light, and it was actually pretty clear. Except there was a small ladder in there leading up to my closet. So I freaked out quietly and turned off the flashlight. I saw some light being cast into the space from the lower floor and I saw a shadow move as though someone was standing there and then moved. When I turned the light off, I yanked the ladder out, damaging the wall even more in the process, and ran out across the street to a Denny's parking lot and called the cops. As soon as I hung up, I saw the blinds in my window part open for a few seconds and then close again. They came within minutes and apprehended my downstairs neighbor. Turns out he hadn't left his apartment in almost 3 years and developed paranoid schizophrenia, causing him to visit my apartment when I was out. The worst part is I remember hearing crying/wailing sounds coming from my closet as far back as a year before I moved out. Long wails that would start and stop in the middle of the night. He was not charged with anything and lives in a halfway house last I heard, 4 years ago. Edit. Since this kind of blew up, I'll add a few other details. I actually met the guy when I first moved in. He introduced himself outside as my downstairs neighbor. Not sure how he knew. He said he hoped that we can be good friends. That was about a year before he stopped leaving his apartment. I did see a police photo of him taken the day of the incident, and he looked like he just stopped eating. He was extremely skinny, pale and had a crazed look. When I met him, he was just a normal looking guy walking his dog. I used to work in a big office building. Sometimes I would do overtime at night or the weekends. I often went in late because I preferred to be alone and I could listen to the radio loud. Every time I went in, about an hour or 2 after I had been there, I would start to hear these loud bangs that sounded like something heavy falling to the floor, then being dragged along the length of the floor to the other side of the building, accompanied by heavy footsteps. I told myself it was the air conditioning or something and just powered through. I never heard it during the day though. Could have just been because the office was busy and the noise was disguised. After a few times of the same thing, I asked the facilities manager about it. He asked me to record the noise for him. So I did. I recorded a short video and emailed it to him. He told me later he did not hear anything on the video. So he sat at my desk for a few hours one night and never heard the noise either. Basically, he thought I was mistaken or something. I told the story to some coworkers, joking about it being a ghost. But I was flippant because no one's died in this office, right? My coworker tells me, actually, yeah. A lady that worked for the company had a heart attack and died in the lobby about 10 years prior. There is a plaque in her honor in the neighboring lobby, which I had never noticed. She had brought over a lost customer to the correct room, then clutched her chest, collapsed, and someone moved her the break room while they called 911. Never worked overtime alone at night again. I've told this before. It happened when I was pretty young. I used to have this reoccurring nightmare about this lizard man type monster who could see what I could see out of my eyes. So I'd run and hide and he didn't know where I was, but then as soon as I peeked to see if it was safe, he'd know where I was. So I'd have to leave that hiding spot and go find a new one, and then it would happen over and over and over again. A literal nightmare. Very Kafkaesque. But here is the real spooky part. I once mentioned the lizard man to my dad, and he got super white in the face and his voice was all shaky, and he just said, "This dream took place at our house in East St. Paul, the one with the apartments right behind it?" And I said yes. That's where I'd always go to hide. How did you know that? And he said, because I have the exact same dream. And I don't know if it was just the way he said it or just the overall situation or both, but I still get goosebumps thinking about it. It's quite chilling. One time my wife, then girlfriend, was staying overnight at my parents' house while I was still away at college wrapping up my last day of work. I was woken up by a very loud knock on my dorm room door. When I went to open it, there was no one there. I see it's 3 o'clock on the dot. I'm not superstitious at all, but it spooked the hell out of me, and I basically slept with one eye open the rest of the night. I come home that day, see my girlfriend, get to talking, and I mention the knocking, trying to laugh it off. She freezes up, that tells me she had woken up to find herself in front of my bedroom door after having slept walk there at 3 AM. One night I had driven up to my sister's house to drop my nieces off. It is pouring down rain, and as I pull into her driveway my headlights briefly illuminate a man in coveralls standing at the side of their barn. I just remember seeing the coveralls very distinctly, and his hands. He stepped back behind the barn when my lights hit him. I sit there in shock for a second, and then run inside to tell my sister. We go out to investigate, and there is nothing and nobody there. A few weeks later she mentions to me she found out that years back the neighbor's son had committed suicide. He was a mechanic. I always miss these threads, but I had 2 paranormal incidents. One when I was young and the other during high school. Back then my mom went to Thailand for a month, so it was only myself and my dad. I woke a bit earlier than usual, so I ended up playing on the phone while still in bed. I'm on the fetal position facing the wall. Eventually I got tired of laying on my right side, so I sat up still looking at my phone. I eventually look up to see a figure standing within the curtains, about 2 meters from bottom to the top of curtain. The curtain draped over him. I could see broad shoulders and a strong head outline. He's looking outside. Within 5 seconds of fear building up that someone was in my room, the curtain collapses in his place. No wind, no underdoor draft, and the door locked. Similar incident when I was younger. My mom called me to fetch my dad for dinner. I went in to find a figure standing within the curtains. Windows wide open, and a gale of windows blowing through both sides, and the weight of the figure standing in the middle stopping the curtains blowing all the way up. Me thinking it was my dad, I went up to him. I told him to come eat. Something sinister about that time, as the figure turns and looks at me, then turns its head to look outside in utter silence, freaking out. I then hear water splashes coming from the bathroom. I assume he's bathing. I call for him. No answer. I swear the fear just kicked in, and I booted back to the dining room. Same figure in both stories. I haven't seen anything else, but I never forget those times. I don't really believe in the paranormal stuff, but damn, that's something I can never grasp. I was in work a few weeks back. I work in a little store in my village. I was on the 6 AM shift. Shop opens at 7, and this occurred about 8:30 AM. I was at the end of an aisle stacking the bread away when I felt a presence behind me. Assuming I was in the way of someone trying to get a loaf, I began walking up the aisle towards the checkout, pretending I had other business to attend to. I turned round to ensure there was someone by the bread as I was about halfway up the aisle, confirmed there was a figure there, so I kept walking. Got to the checkout where we have CCTV across the entire store, had a look to see if they were heading towards the checkout yet, only to realize that nobody was in the entire store. From where I walked from the bread section to the checkout, it's impossible for somebody to have left without me seeing them go. Still creeps me out to think about, but nobody at work believes me. I stayed at my grandma's house one night because my parents were going out to a reunion like 3 hours away, so they decided to stay in a hotel instead of drive home and leave me there. I woke up in the middle of the night with a woman standing at the end of the couch just staring at me. I just sat in silence, mortified for what seemed like hours, just staring at her before she literally disappeared in front of me. It was more like maybe 10 minutes maximum, but it felt like a lifetime. Nobody believes me to this day and think I was dreaming, but I was very much awake. Years ago when I was around 10 or 11, I used to be part of the Boy Scouts. We went on a camping trip one day. There was a lake down the hill from our camping site, So naturally myself and 2 friends decided to look around. None of us realized how quickly it turns from light to dark when the sun starts setting. My friends and I began to sprint back to the camp. I tripped several times, being left behind in the dark. I really needed glasses back then, and mixed with the darkness, I was left practically blinded. I wandered in the general direction of the camp. I eventually saw a figure who looked to be about my age. They motioned in the direction of the camp. I began walking that way, and when I turned to say thanks, they were gone. I couldn't really make out their features due to the darkness, but I distinctly remember them looking paler than a human should. I don't know why I immediately trusted the figure, but I felt at ease around it. I know it wasn't a member of my group, because they didn't have the uniforms we were wearing. Thanks lads and ladies for staying till the end of the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more.